Were they serious? I couldn't wrap my head around the tiny amount they were talking about. Just the other day, my phone was lighting up nonstop with calls from my parents. When I finally picked up, they didn't even give me a chance to say anything before they started yelling. At first, I couldn't even make sense of what my dad was saying. It was just a blur of frustration. Later, I pieced it together. They were furious, convinced that I had only been sending them a laughable sum of money. My sister, Sophia, they claimed was giving them a whopping $12,000 a month, while they believed I was only sending 80 cents. That was absurd. I had been wiring them $12,000 every single month, just like Sophia. You must be lying, they shot back. Sophia makes more than you with her modeling career. She sends us $12,000 a month. We are so disappointed in you. My dad grumbled about how thoughtful Sophia was, clearly irritated. Then my mom chimed in, wasting no time criticizing how I lived my life. Do you think it's fine to just sit around, living on your own, spending money however you want? Why can't you be more like your sister? She actually cares about us. She sighed heavily. I had always known they favored Sophia. She was gorgeous, effortlessly grabbing attention wherever she went, while I was easy to overlook. People constantly compared us. They'd rave about her beauty and joke about how plain I looked standing next to her. From a young age, it was clear to everyone that Sophia was meant for the spotlight. Acting, modeling, anything glamorous. My parents went all out for her, dressing her in the latest styles, signing her up for any class she wanted. Meanwhile, I got hand-me-downs and no extracurriculars. Sophia grew up thinking the world revolved around her, and that included believing my things were hers to take. If I dared to complain, my parents had the same response every time. Let it go, Emily. She's younger. Be a good big sister. They brushed off my feelings like they didn't matter. And as the years went by, their favoritism only got worse. When we were kids, Sophia decided she wanted her own bedroom. My parents didn't even hesitate. They kicked me out of mine. You don't have that much stuff, Emily. There's plenty of space in the living room. So that's where I ended up, sleeping among old family portraits in the living room, feeling like an afterthought. I finally decided to stop sending them money. Maybe that would get my point across. I'm Emily, 31 years old, working in a food processing plant, carrying the weight of always being the lesser child. Meanwhile, my beautiful younger sister Sophia, 6 years my junior, was basking in the attention and affection I never had. Through all of it, the cold indifference, the never-ending comparisons, I pushed forward, holding on to the one source of warmth I had ever known, my grandfather had named me Emily during spring, when the Emily flowers were in full bloom. He loved those flowers, admired their resilience. As a kid, I'd curl up in his lap, soaking in his kindness as he spoke words that stayed with me for life. Emily, he'd say, no matter how tough things get, you can always push through. After hardship, happiness will bloom again, just like the Emilys in spring. I held on to those words during the hardest moments of my life. As I got older, it became painfully clear how differently my parents treated me and Sophia. My own house never truly felt like home. When I brought up my dream of becoming a school nurse and wanted to talk about college entrance exams, my parents shut it down immediately. We can't afford to send you to college. Think about your sister, Sophia. We have to save for her future. That was their excuse, but the truth? We weren't struggling financially. We were just an average middle-class family. They simply didn't want to invest in me. My dreams took a back seat to Sophia's. So while she got to go to a top university, I went straight into the workforce, landing a job at a mid-sized company a few train stops from home. Eventually, I moved out and got my own little studio apartment near my job. It was a relief to have my own space, free from the endless comparisons. Meanwhile, Sophia thrived in college, and one lucky day, she was discovered by a talent scout while shopping with her friends. My parents were ecstatic. They couldn't stop talking about her blossoming modeling career. One day, Sophia called me, practically buzzing with excitement. We owe everything to Mom and Dad, she gushed. Let's start giving them $12,000 a month to show our appreciation. I nearly dropped my phone. $12,000? That was an insane amount of money. Sure, Sophia's modeling gigs paid well, but I was only making around $6,000 a month. If I agreed, I'd have to cut back on everything. And even then, I'd need another source of income. So I took a second job as a weekend security guard at a construction site. It paid decently, but the work was brutal. The summers were unbearably hot, the winters bone chilling. More than once I wanted to quit. But I stuck with it, torn between loyalty to my family and not wanting to fall behind Sophia. Deep down, I clung to my grandfather's words, hoping that someday, after all the struggles, happiness would bloom for me too, just like the Amis in spring. Balancing a grueling job with my certification studies meant running on little to no sleep, but my coworkers surprised me with their kindness. They'd sometimes bring me snacks or drinks, knowing how hard I was pushing myself. I was scrimping on everything, cutting back on eating out, barely spending on myself, yet somehow scraping together $12,000 every month still felt impossible. Determined to increase my earnings, I made up my mind to get a professional certification. Every free moment went into studying, turning my days into a blur of work and preparation. In the midst of this nonstop grind, I missed multiple calls from my parents. When I finally found a moment to return their calls, I was met with immediate fury. "You're awful! Do you even think about us?" My father's voice thundered through the phone, with my mother's angry agreement echoing in the background. Completely thrown off, I asked, "What's going on? Is this about the money I've been sending?" I had no idea what had made them so upset. "Do you know how much Sophia is sending? $12,000. And you send just 80 cents. Are you making fun of us?" my father accused. "That's impossible. I've been sending $12,000 every month," I replied firmly, stunned by the accusation. "Don't lie. Sophia makes more than you from her modeling career, so she's the one sending us $12,000 each month. I'm really disappointed in you. Sophia is so thoughtful," my father continued, his tone dripping with disapproval. Then my mother jumped in, criticizing my lifestyle and accusing me of not caring about them the way Sophia did. I was speechless, caught between frustration and sadness, unable to get a word in. That's when it finally hit me. There had been a massive misunderstanding. Months earlier, Sophia had suggested we keep our financial contributions anonymous under a shared name, Rain. What I hadn't realized at the time was that Sophia's stage name was Rain. As a result, the system mistakenly logged the 80-cent transactions under my name, Emily, while crediting the $12,000 payments to Sophia. Before I could even begin to explain the mix-up, my parents abruptly shut me down. "We don't need your insulting 80 cents, my father spat before hanging up. I was furious at Sophia for not clarifying our arrangement and at my parents for assuming the worst about me. That night, I couldn't sleep, torn between anger and heartbreak. Unsure of what to do next, I decided to turn to my high school friend Madison for advice. She worked at a consulting firm and had a reputation for being sharp and straightforward. Madison was surprised when I asked to meet up on such short notice. "What's going on?" she asked as we sat down for lunch, immediately noticing how stressed I looked. I laid everything out for her, explaining the whole misunderstanding with the money. After listening carefully, Madison tilted her head and asked, "Are your parents struggling financially? I mean, they're in their 80s, right?" She was just as shocked as I was about the $12,000 amount. "Sounds like they have debts," she added. "It's money spent on you two." As we kept talking, she helped me step back and look at the situation from a different angle. Her perspective was a breath of fresh air, pulling me out of the emotional storm I'd been caught in. When Sophia first suggested we send money home as a sign of gratitude, I remember discussing it with Madison over lunch. At the time, she had raised an eyebrow and pointed out, "You say it's money spent on both of you, but didn't you skip college? Didn't most of it go towards Sophia? And isn't your dad still working?" It made no sense that they suddenly needed $12,000 a month when they'd been getting by just fine before. Her words struck a chord, especially when she suggested that if my parents truly believed I was only sending 80 cents, maybe I should take the hint and stop paying altogether. "You're way too nice, Emily. Don't let yourself be guilt-tripped," Madison advised. Her words stayed with me, and I decided I wasn't going to cave under pressure anymore. 3 months later, my phone wouldn't stop ringing one morning. It was Sophia, and she was furious. Why haven't you been picking up all morning? And why did you stop sending money without telling me? What were you thinking? She snapped. Already dealing with my own financial struggles, I was exhausted by her accusations. Through Madison, who had quietly done some digging through mutual connections, I had learned that Sophia's so-called financial contributions were less about necessity and more about keeping up appearances and funding my parents' expensive habits. Madison had found out that Sophia was constantly splurging on clothes and cosmetics, venting to her friends. My big sister is my personal bank. I rely on her money. Lately, things have been rough since she cut me off. Apparently, she was even considering cutting back on spa treatments and high-end makeup. Meanwhile, my mother was busy indulging in luxury brands, and my father, from working, had been gambling. The thought of my hard-earned money fueling their reckless spending made me sick. You think I don't know Dad is still working, so my money isn't actually needed? I confronted them. A week after I stopped sending money, my parents reached out again. By then, they had finally confronted Sophia, who, through tears, admitted that she wasn't making nearly as much as she had claimed. In reality, she was barely getting by in the industry. Despite her looks, she lacked any standout talent in singing or dancing, which had limited her opportunities. Most of her gigs were low-paying, modeling cheap online catalogs. After learning the truth, my parents' attitude shifted, just not in the way I'd hoped. We've spoken to Sophia, and we've been tough on her, they told me. So don't worry, just go back to sending the money like before. No apology, no acknowledgement of their mistake, just a demand for the 3 months' worth of payments I had skipped. I was floored. We've accounted for those months, they added casually, so just send the money when you can. You're responsible, after all. Their entitlement was staggering. That was when I finally voiced the question that had been gnawing at me for a while. I heard from Sophia that there's some debt. Is that true? I asked, needing clarity. Debt? That's ridiculous, they scoffed. Your grandparents' inheritance covered tuition. Their response told me everything I needed to know. They brushed me off like it was nothing. That conversation shattered the illusion I had about my family's financial struggles and their supposed moral obligations. It became obvious that my decisions couldn't be based purely on family loyalty. I had to consider the actual facts and whether the requests for money were even justified. My father dismissed Sophia's claims outright, insisting there was no debt. "We just need a little extra for shopping," he said nonchalantly. My mother chimed in just as casually, clearly believing my father's salary was enough to cover everything. It was obvious they were financially stable and didn't need my help at all. Then why does Sophia have a full-time job? I shot back, feeling my patience wear thin. My father snapped. "Is that how you talk to your parents?" "I didn't raise a daughter to be this disrespectful," my mother piled on. "If this is how you're going to be, then we don't need a daughter like you." Then came the final blow. They threatened to use the savings my grandfather had specifically left for me. "We'll just take your grandfather's money," they said coldly. "You're no longer part of this family." Their willingness to cut me off so easily hit me hard. I was left standing there, stunned and heartbroken. After they left, I broke down, feeling discarded, wondering if I ever truly mattered to them. 3 months passed in silence. Then, one day, the doorbell rang. Standing there were my parents and Sophia. I hesitated before opening the door, confused by how worn out and tired they looked, a stark contrast to my own improved circumstances. In the time since they last saw me, I had thrown myself into my studies, earning a small business consultant certification that significantly raised my income. Madison had helped me land a new job, and now I was a team leader, thriving at work and even considering upgrading to a better apartment closer to my office. My parents and Sophia took one look at me, my healthier appearance, my nicer clothes, and immediately questioned it. "What's with all this luxury?" they asked, their tone almost accusatory. Before you treat yourself to all this, hand over some money. They demanded, acting as if they were entitled to it. They weren't asking for help, they were expecting it. Their entitled attitude made my blood boil. With Dad's salary and Sophia's income, you should be just fine. What's really going on? I pressed. Sophia's tough exterior cracked. With tears brimming in her eyes, she confessed. Her modeling career wasn't taking off the way she'd made it seem. She'd been scouted by another agency, one she thought would launch her into acting. Believing in the opportunity, she invested a huge sum to secure her spot. But it was all a scam. The agency disappeared, taking all her money with them. As if on cue, someone from a consumer finance company showed up at my door asking if I was related to them. Apparently, my family had taken out a large loan, gambling on Sophia's success. To make matters worse, she had been splurging at nightclubs trying to escape the stress, digging their financial hole even deeper. I was floored by their recklessness. When the finance agent asked if I was family, I responded without hesitation, "I don't know these people at all. I have nothing to do with them." It was a harsh line, but it had to be said. I wasn't about to let their mistakes drag me down. That moment marked the final break, not just emotionally, but legally from the toxic cycle they had trapped me in. Soon after, my parents filed for bankruptcy. Their debts were wiped clean, but at a cost. They lost the family home and were forced to downsize into a small apartment. Both eventually found temp jobs, scraping by. Ironically, my father ended up working at the same construction site where I had once done part-time work. On his first day, a coworker called out to him, "Hey, old man, give me a hand here. There used to be this young woman working here before. She worked her ass off, sending money home to her parents. Man, I'd love to see what kind of parents would make their daughter work here." My father's expression turned to stone. Meanwhile, Sophia gave up on modeling and tried her luck in the nightlife industry. But her entitled attitude didn't mesh well with the clientele and she got fired from several clubs. She eventually settled for a low-paying job at a small bar. Her appearance started to reflect her choices, and the glamorous image she once held onto became nothing more than a fading memory. "A model? Who are you kidding? Look in the mirror," people mocked. As for me, I moved forward. I severed ties with my family and built my own life. 6 years later, I found myself at Madison's wedding in Tampa, Florida. The ceremony was held in a beautiful seaside chapel, the ocean stretching endlessly beyond us. The atmosphere was filled with joy and new beginnings. Next to Madison stood her husband, glowing with pride. Madison, always so focused on her career, had unexpectedly fallen in love with a colleague. During the wedding, she leaned over to me, her smile radiant. "Emily, you should be open to love, too. I go after what I want and let go of what I don't." Her husband laughed, teasing, "Just don't let go of me, okay?" The wedding wasn't just about love. It was a celebration of freedom. The freedom Madison had helped me find. I turned to her, my heart full of gratitude. "Madison, be happy, and thank you for everything." As the night went on, Madison introduced me to a friend, Liam. Tall, confident, with a warm, easygoing smile, he owned an architectural firm. "I wanted you two to meet," Madison said mischievously. "You have such similar personalities." We laughed, and Liam and I ended up having dinner together. Conversation flowed naturally, and for the first time in a long while, I felt something new. Hope. Just like my grandfather always believed, I was finally beginning to bloom. Looking up at the stars, I whispered to myself, "Grandpa, keep watching over me. I promise I'll keep growing." A smile crossed my lips. I was ready for whatever came next.